If you're on the fence about renting versus buying an airplane, then I think you will find this video hugely helpful, because my goal for you is that you will be able to walk away with the confidence and the clarity as to whether or not this is the right or the wrong time to buy an airplane. And then even more importantly, I think you'll have some clarity as to next steps and things that you should consider and start kind of getting in order towards buying an airplane. And so when I did this process, I had to figure pretty much all this out from scratch. And so now I'm trying to assemble these different resources to hopefully help you in your journey. So there's gonna be a ton of info. I think it's all gonna be helpful to you. So let's dive right in. So the first question is, when is the right time to move from renting an airplane to actually buying an airplane? Now, there's no right or wrong answer to this, and it's gonna be deeply personal for everyone. Everyone's situation is different, but I took kind of a three-pronged approach to this that really helped me decide for a long time this was not the right time to buy an airplane. And then once it was, these three questions helped me realize, yeah, okay, it's time to go ahead and jump in. So those kind of three questions and categories were frequency, freedom, and financials. So all of these end up being kind of interrelated, but I think it's helpful to take them in this particular order. At least it was and still is for me. So the first question is frequency. How often do you want to be flying? And I like to think about this on a monthly basis, because week by week, weeks all vary and some are busier than others, right? And annually feels like too large of a chunk of time to actually control. So month to month, I think, is a good way to think about it. And when I was on the fence of renting versus buying, at the time I was renting about 5 to 6 hours per month, but I really wanted to fly more like 10 hours per month. I wanted to be flying on average a couple hours every weekend, and weeks would be different, but that's what I wanted to average out at. And so, right there, that's kind of the first decision-making criteria, because if I was only wanting or able to fly 2 hours a month, then I think that's a bad situation to own an airplane. A lot of people do that, honestly, but for a lot of reasons, I don't think that's healthy to own an airplane and only fly it 2 hours a month. It's not good for the airplane. It's not good for you. And so, there's not a hard and fast rule here as to once it's above X number of hours, you should own an airplane. But as we'll kind of explore in the financial section, is for the types of airplanes that we're talking about, a ballpark figure, 100 hours a year is a good kind of breaking point for break even a little bit financially. So I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I was trying to think, okay, I'm flying 5 hours a month. I want to be flying more like 8 to 10 so I can get to 100 hours a year. And so that was kind of a good decision making process for me to say, okay, I'm kind of starting to lean towards buying, at least in terms of how frequently I want to be flying. But who's to say I couldn't just rent 10 hours a month, right? And that's where these second two questions come in really, really handy: freedom and financials. So in terms of freedom, I was really looking for two more things as a renter. One was I wanted to be able to rent for longer lengths of time, larger rental blocks. And then I also really wanted spontaneity. And if you've ever rented airplanes before, you know that you're probably laughing, both those things can be really hard to achieve, right? You can only, rent the airplane so far in advance, and sometimes getting a weekend trip or something can be challenging. There's just a lot of restrictions, either just availability or you want to rent it all weekend, but then they're going to charge you a minimum of X number of hours per day, and like, oh gosh, I didn't plan on flying actually that much per day. Like, it's just hard, right? And spontaneity can be hard too, because on days where the weather's awesome and you just want to go fly, well, everyone else in your rental club had that same idea, right? And so you're last in line to just go fly because the weather's nice. And so I had the frequency goal. I wanted to be flying more, and I wanted more freedom in my flying to do those things that I just mentioned. And so because of those two things, that really started to create some friction with the rental scenario. And so both of those things really started favoring purchasing an airplane for me. And so that's where the last part of this equation comes in, the financial picture. So once you've got the frequency and the freedom requirements that both kind of lean towards buying, then we look at the financial picture to see if we can make it make sense. And briefly, I'll just mention at this point, if you're flying as frequently as you would like and you have sufficient freedom in that flying and you're still renting, then just stick with renting. That's awesome. I know for me, I ran into some roadblocks and it kind of favored purchasing an airplane. But gosh, if you're already accomplishing, the frequency and the freedom that you want in aviation, and you can do that through renting, then more power to you. My goal is not to push you into airplane ownership, but more just to help you feel more confident that you are in the right place out of those two scenarios. Okay, so for financial, there's two important questions we got to ask here. And the first is there a break even here on owning versus renting based off of how many hours I want to fly? And the second is, can I still own this airplane and live within my means? So let's go through both of those. So first we want to look at how many hours we plan on flying a year and see, is it at least ballpark similar or maybe a little bit more or hopefully even a little bit less to own the airplane rather than to rent it. And for me, about 100 hours a year seemed to kind of be that break even. And that's going to be different for everybody based on your rental costs and what kind of airplane you're wanting to buy and all that kind of thing. But about 100 hours a year was a good ballpark figure for me. And so I knew that I wanted to fly at least 100 hours a year, maybe more like 120. And so if I could get the hourly cost all in to be pretty similar for me, like renting versus buying, but in the buying scenario, I have all of the freedom to go with it, right? I can use it for as long as I want. I can be as spontaneous as I want. And it's pretty similar in cost. Like that's a no-brainer. That's a huge, huge win for me. Or even if it costs me a little bit more per hour to own, but I get all of that freedom, that's really worth it. But if it's really out of proportion, where like it cost me 5 times more to own, like to me, that freedom wasn't worth, increasing my cost by 5x. So you want to look at that break even to see kind of where that shakes out. And the second really important question here is, can I still live within my means while owning this airplane? And this is the question that for most of my aviation career has kept me from owning an airplane. And I'm glad that I didn't own an airplane, okay? And so I think this is such an important question. My take on paying for an airplane and pursuing aviation really comes down to 2 things. It's one, I want to live within my means. If I make a little or I make a lot, I want to spend less than I make. That is so, so important. And then the second part of that is with whatever is left over, you get to decide where your residual time, money, energy, effort, resources, all of those things, you can decide where those go towards. And so if that can go towards flying or owning an airplane and you can still live within your means, then awesome. That's a really great situation. But if it can't, and for most of my life it couldn't, that's okay too. And I think it's really, really important to wait until a season where that makes sense. And so that's kept me out of financial trouble, just really not trying to get ahead of my skis here, get upside down financially, just live within my means and decide with what's left over and where I want to dedicate myself. Does airplane ownership, can it fit into that? And if not, then let's do something else. So if those things hold true for you to where, you can live within your means and there's some level of financial break even on the airplane, then I think that's a good situation towards the argument of owning. And then particularly if you have kind of the freedom and frequency issues that I was describing where you're kind of having a rub with renting and renting is becoming problematic for those 2 goals and the financially it kind of is leaning towards owning, then I think that's kind of the 3-pronged approach to really give you a yes, yes, and yes towards, I really need to think about actually owning the airplane. So if after all of that you decide, yes, I want to go look into airplane ownership either for now or for the future, there's 4 resources that I encourage you to take a look at that I think will really, really help you in this process. So the first big question is, what kind of airplane do I need to get? And this is such a great question. It's the place to start, right? And I put together another video, and I'll link all this down in the description, by the way. So you'll have, step 1, step 2, step 3, boom, 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 that you can go through it. But the first thing is what airplane is going to be right for you. And so in this video, I talk about what I call the 6-point mission, which helps you identify the parameters and qualities of an airplane that is going to be right based on the mission that you need that airplane to perform. So that's the first step. Let's figure out what kind of airplane is going to be right for you. The second step in resource is going to be figuring out ownership costs. Now, you've probably already done some research in this when you were kind of doing the financial section we talked about a minute ago, but let's get really specific about those ownership costs based on the airplane or airplanes that you had in mind at looking at. And so I've put together another video talking about all of the ownership costs, pretty nitty gritty down to oil changes and annuals and insurance and all that stuff for 7, commonly entry-level airplanes. Now, obviously you can kind of adjust this based on the specific airplane you're looking for, but I think it'll give you a good framework and a model to really start getting a really solid estimate of the cost, just so you can really double check that financial question that you had earlier and make sure that break even on renting versus owning is in a good place. The third thing you need to understand is what goes into the pricing behind airplanes. If you're shopping on the used market, which most of us are, you'll notice that the prices are wildly different, and there's a lot of inputs that go into what kind of drives the market price for an airplane. And so I put another video together talking about some of the really big ones, some of the things to look out for, and how to start building your own comps to figure out, okay, based on this kind of airplane that I'm looking for, here's how much I expect them to cost based off of the different parameters and stuff. So if you go watch that video, I think it'll help you be more well-informed in terms of when you're looking at airplanes, why are they priced the way they are? Is that a good deal? Is that a bad deal? You need to start understanding how to look at the different listings online. And then the last step is you really need to understand the step-by-step process for buying an airplane. All of the nitty gritty. How does it actually work from start to finish? And so I'm actually really excited to announce that I am putting together what I think is going to be an awesome course and an awesome resource on this, where I'm incorporating a lot of my own aviation mentors and the people that helped me in the airplane buying process. And we're going to go on video and kind of turn to this checklist of here are all the step-by-step things that need to happen and you need to consider when buying an airplane. And so that's not released yet. If you're watching this in the future, it might be live, but either way, you can get on the waiting list or find out more about it by signing up for my current email list over at airplaneacademy.com/join. And in the meantime, you're going to get my 5 biggest aviation lessons that I've learned, both the good ones and the bad ones. And then when this course debuts, you will be the first to hear about it. And then I'm also launching another kind of a smaller course talking about how I make money passively online that actually pays for all of my flying. And so if you're looking to better understand how to offset some of your flying costs, I'm putting a course together too as to how exactly I do that. And I'm really, really excited. I hope that's going to help a lot of people. And so if you're looking for the next steps on how to buy an airplane or how to, kind of pay for it over time and stuff, I think this is going to be 2 really helpful resources for you, again, over at airplaneacademy.com/join, and you'll get notified whenever those do launch. So coming out of this video, I really encourage you to go down in the description and watch those additional resources, the next steps for wanting to pursue owning an airplane. For me, it's one of the best things I ever did, but I really had to wait until the right moment, and I'm so glad I did. So I hope this is really helpful for you. Make sure to go watch those additional resources, and I hope that it can serve you in your aviation journey.